Okay, so have you ever set a goal and you feel super motivated, but then it just kind of fizzles out?
Yeah.
You're definitely not alone if you've been there.
Yeah.
But today we are taking a deep dive into discipline,
Okay.
but with a little twist.
Interesting.
We're going to explore this idea that sometimes you need to hit the brakes to really accelerate your progress.
Hmm.
So our source material for this deep dive is this fascinating article called Brakes Make the Car Go Faster, Stoic Discipline Explained.
Ah, yeah, that's a good one. It is a little counterintuitive, isn't it?
Right.
Because you think of discipline as this constant pushing forward, forcing ourselves forward.
Uh-huh.
But this article is saying that true discipline is as much about restraint as it is about action.
That is what caught my eye, too.
Yeah.
It's how can brakes, the things that slow you down, actually make a car go faster?
Right.
What's the connection to discipline and actually, achieving things in life?
Well, the article uses that car analogy to highlight a really crucial point. Without brakes, a car can't really use its full power. It has to be super cautious and constantly worried about spinning out of control.
Yeah.
So it never really gets to open up and fly.
I see where you're going with this. It's in my own life.
Okay.
I have this big dream of writing a novel,
Uh-huh.
but I just get so overwhelmed by how big of a task it is that I just end up fiddling with social media all day instead of writing.
Yeah, you're hitting on a key insight there.
Really?
That fear of failure,
Yeah.
of making mistakes,
Yeah.
can act like an invisible brake holding us back from actually going after the things that we want to do.
So is it my procrastination is a form of self-sabotage?
Yeah.
I'm putting on the brakes before I even give myself a chance to accelerate.
That's a great way to put it.
Interesting.
And this is where the Stoic idea of discipline comes in.
Okay.
The article quotes this idea: discipline sets you free. This seems paradoxical.
I know.
But the Stoics really believed that true freedom comes from mastering our impulses, from having that inner brake system that allows us to move forward confidently and intentionally.
I can see that, but I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with that idea of discipline being freeing.
Yeah.
It often feels restrictive,
Yeah.
I'm denying myself things that I enjoy.
Right.
How do the Stoics address that?
It's all about recognizing that true freedom isn't just about instant gratification.
Oh, right.
It's about aligning your actions with your values and your goals.
Oh.
So sometimes that means saying no to that extra piece of cake or hitting the off button on that addictive video game
Yeah.
because you're choosing the long-term satisfaction of a healthier body or a more productive life.
Choosing the deeper satisfaction of becoming the person you actually want to be,
Exactly.
rather than giving in to every fleeting whim.
Exactly. And that's where the article goes deeper.
Okay.
It distinguishes between two types of discipline.
Okay.
The first is the discipline to do something, to push through resistance and take action, like finally sitting down to write that novel.
Wait, that's the gas pedal.
Exactly.
But then there's the second type, the discipline to not do something.
Precisely. That's the brake pedal. It's a discipline to be present, to resist distractions, to quiet the mental chatter.
That's where I really struggle, I think. My mind is like a browser with 20 tabs open all the time.
Yeah.
How do you cultivate that kind of stillness,
Yeah.
that discipline to just be?
Well, the article offers a couple of practical methods, and they're both surprisingly simple.
Okay.
The first one is called the mouse hole technique.
Mouse hole. Okay.
Imagine you're a cat intently watching a mouse hole.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What does this have to do with discipline?
So the mouse hole represents your next thought. And the practice is to simply ask yourself, what will my next thought be?
Okay.
And then patiently observe your mind.
Wait, so by simply anticipating my next thought, I can actually create a pause in that constant mental stream? That seems almost too easy.
It is surprisingly effective.
Really?
And in that pause, you enter a state of mindfulness, a brief moment of stillness. It's like hitting the refresh button on your mental landscape.
It's like clearing out all the clutter.
Yeah.
Making space for something new, something more intentional to emerge.
Exactly. The article suggests practicing this mouse hole method several times a day, just for a few seconds each time.
Okay.
Over time, these mini mindfulness breaks can reduce stress, sharpen focus, and even boost creativity.
I see how that would tie back into that Stoic idea of self-control.
Yeah.
By becoming aware of our thoughts, we gain the ability to choose which ones to engage with and which ones to let go of.
Precisely. And that brings us to the second method outlined in the article,
Okay.
the 6x5 method.
Right. I'm ready to hear about this one.
It's a two-part system designed to build consistency and discipline in taking action.
My to-do list is always overflowing.
Yeah.
So any help with actually getting things done is very welcome.
The first part of the 6x5 method is the 5-minute rule.
5-minute rule. Okay.
Have you ever felt so overwhelmed by a task that you just couldn't even get started?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes even the thought of tackling my email inbox feels like climbing Mount Everest.
That's where the 5-minute rule comes in.
Okay.
Whenever you encounter that kind of resistance, just commit to working on the task for 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah, seriously.
Set a timer, dive in, and see what happens.
That seems almost too simple.
You'd be surprised.
Real?
The article highlights that often once you overcome that initial inertia, you find yourself continuing way beyond those 5 minutes.
Oh, so it's like tricking your brain into taking action.
Yeah.
And once you get going, the momentum takes over.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
The key is to make that initial commitment so small that it feels almost effortless. And the 5-minute rule can be applied to virtually any task you're procrastinating on.
Okay.
Writing, exercising, cleaning, you name it.
It's like those baby steps that lead to a marathon.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's part one. What about the second part of this 6x5 method? The second part is the 6 daily tasks rule.
6 daily tasks.
Every morning, you write down 6 simple tasks
Okay.
that, if completed, would make you feel satisfied with your day.
So it's like setting achievable goals that contribute to a sense of accomplishment.
Exactly. And then
Yeah.
you just put a checkbox next to each task and use the 5-minute rule throughout the day to tackle each one.
It's like a brilliant combination.
Yeah.
It takes that initial push of the 5-minute rule and combines it with that long-term strategy of setting daily goals.
Yeah.
But what makes this 6x5 method particularly stoic?
Well, the Stoics believed in focusing on what you can control.
Hmm.
And the 6x5 method puts you firmly in the driver's seat of your day.
Okay.
You're choosing what matters most and taking consistent action regardless of external circumstances.
It's like a mini training program for building that stoic brake system we were talking about.
Exactly.
But I'm curious, is there ever a point where discipline becomes too much of a good thing?
That's a great question, and it's one the Stoics grappled with themselves. They weren't about extreme self-denial or turning life into some joyless marathon of discipline.
So how do you find that balance? How do you know if you're actually being disciplined or just kind of punishing yourself?
Well, the Stoics, they emphasized virtue as the guiding principle.
Okay.
They believed that virtues like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance should inform all our actions.
So it's not just about blindly following rules or pushing yourself to the limit. It's about aligning your discipline with a deeper sense of purpose and values.
Exactly. For example, let's say you're using the 6x5 method. It's not just about checking off those 6 tasks.
Yeah.
It's about choosing tasks that genuinely contribute to your well-being
Yep.
and align with your values.
Right.
If you're constantly pushing yourself to do things that feel meaningless or draining, that's a sign you might need to reevaluate.
So it's about being mindful of the why behind your discipline. It's not about achieving some arbitrary standard of productivity. It's about living a life that feels meaningful and aligned with your deepest aspirations.
Precisely. And remember, the goal of Stoicism is not to become some kind of emotionless robot.
Right.
It's about finding a balance between discipline and acceptance,
Okay.
between striving for excellence and embracing the imperfections of life.
That makes sense. The Stoics weren't about suppressing emotions altogether, were they?
Not at all. They recognize that emotions are a natural part of the human experience.
Right.
But they believe that we can train ourselves to respond to those emotions in a more constructive way, rather than just being ruled by them.
It's like we're building that inner brake system, not to eliminate emotions, but to navigate them more skillfully.
Exactly. And the Stoics also emphasize the importance of recognizing what's truly within our control and what's not.
Okay, I can see where this is going. We can't control the weather. We can't control other people's actions. But we can control our own responses to those events.
Precisely. And that's a key element of Stoic discipline.
Focusing your energy on what you can influence and letting go of what you can't.
It's about surrendering to the flow of life,
Yeah.
while still maintaining a sense of agency and purpose within that flow. I'm starting to see how those two seemingly opposite ideas can actually coexist.
And that's the beauty of Stoic philosophy. It's full of these paradoxes that, when you unpack them, reveal profound truths about human nature and the art of living well.
This whole idea of brakes make the car go faster is starting to click for me. It's not about denying yourself joy or pushing yourself to the point of burnout. It's about cultivating that inner strength and clarity that allows you to move forward with confidence and intention even when faced with obstacles.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And remember, the Stoics didn't just preach these ideas, they lived them. They faced incredible challenges like exile, imprisonment, even death. Yet they maintained their inner peace and dignity.
Okay, that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
It's one thing to talk about discipline, in a comfy podcast studio, but it's another thing entirely to embody it in the face of real adversity. What can we learn from the Stoics about facing those tough times? Well, one of the key Stoic practices was to anticipate challenges
Oh,
and prepare themselves mentally for them.
okay.
They even had this exercise called negative visualization,
Negative visualization.
where they would imagine the worst case scenario.
Wait, so they intentionally thought about bad things happening? That sounds kind of depressing.
It might seem that way,
Yeah.
but the purpose wasn't to dwell on negativity. It was about mentally preparing themselves for the possibility of setbacks,
Okay.
so that if those setbacks did occur, they wouldn't be caught off guard.
It's like hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yeah,
But in this case, it's more about mentally rehearsing for challenges so you don't get completely derailed when they inevitably arise.
exactly. And this practice can be incredibly helpful in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with stressors and uncertainties.
I can definitely see the value in that. But how do you find that balance between preparing for potential difficulties and still maintaining a positive outlook on life? Don't you risk becoming overly pessimistic or cynical?
It's a delicate balance, for sure. The Stoics weren't about being naive optimists or doom and gloom pessimists.
Right.
They were about finding a realistic middle ground,
Oh.
acknowledging the potential for hardship while still appreciating the good things in life.
So it's about recognizing that life is inherently unpredictable, that there will be ups and downs, but that we can choose how we respond to those challenges.
Exactly. And that choice is what Stoic discipline is all about.
Mm.
It's about cultivating that inner strength and resilience that allows you to navigate life's storms without losing sight of your values and goals.
It's like we're building that inner compass that guides us even when the seas get rough.
That's a great analogy.
Hmm.
And remember, the Stoics believed that this kind of inner strength is accessible to everyone, regardless of their circumstances.
That's encouraging to hear. But I think a lot of people, myself included, struggle with feeling like they're not good enough at discipline. Like it's something you either have or you don't.
The Stoics would disagree with that. They saw discipline as a skill, something you develop through practice, just like playing an instrument or learning a new language.
So it's not about beating yourself up for past failures or comparing yourself to others. It's about embracing the journey of self-improvement one step at a time.
Precisely. And remember, the 6x5 method and the mouse hole technique are just two tools among many.
Right.
The Stoics developed a whole arsenal of practices for cultivating discipline and living a virtuous life.
Speaking of those practices, I'm curious to learn more about the specific teachings of some of the key Stoic figures. You mentioned Socrates earlier.
Yeah.
What can we learn from the godfather of Stoicism about self-control and the good life?
Socrates believed that true knowledge comes from within. He famously said, "Know thyself." His method involved relentlessly questioning assumptions and beliefs,
Okay.
both his own and those of others.
It's like he was saying, don't just accept things at face value. Dig deeper, question everything, and understand why you believe what you believe.
Exactly. And through this process of self-discovery, we can identify the areas where we need to strengthen our brakes.
Right.
For example, if we discover that we value health, but we're constantly indulging in unhealthy habits, that's a clear sign that our self-control needs work.
It's about aligning our actions with our values.
Yeah,
And that alignment is where true freedom and fulfillment lie.
precisely. And Socrates also emphasized the importance of virtue as the foundation for a good life. Virtues like wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance are not just abstract ideals, but practical tools for navigating life's challenges.
So it's not just about achieving external success,
Yeah.
but also about cultivating inner strength and moral character.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And those virtues play a crucial role in strengthening our brakes.
Okay.
For example, courage helps us face our fears and take necessary actions even when they're difficult.
And temperance helps us resist temptations and make choices that align with our long-term goals. It's like having a strong internal compass that guides us towards a life of meaning and purpose.
Beautifully put. The Stoics believed that true happiness and freedom come not from external circumstances, but from our own inner state. And that inner state is cultivated through the practice of virtue and self-control.
It's a powerful reminder that we have more control over our happiness than we often realize.
Mm,
Yeah, it really is empowering to think about that. Even amidst chaos, we have that ability to choose our response. It's like we're not just passengers on this crazy ride of life. We can actually take the wheel and steer in a direction that feels meaningful to us.
exactly. And that sense of agency is at the heart of Stoic discipline.
Yeah.
It's not about becoming some kind of superhuman who never, experiences negative emotions.
Right.
It's about cultivating the tools to navigate those emotions
Yeah.
skillfully,
Yeah.
to not let them, derail us from our path.
All this talk about breaks and self-control, it's making me think about something. What happens when we don't develop those breaks?
Mm.
What's the cost of lacking that stoic discipline?
Well, the Stoics believed that a lack of discipline ultimately leads to a life of regret and unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
Without those internal breaks, we're at the mercy of our impulses, constantly reacting to external stimuli, rather than acting from a place of conscious choice.
It's like we're driving with a faulty steering wheel. We might end up somewhere, but it's probably not where we truly wanted to go.
That's a great analogy. And without that inner brake system, we're also more susceptible to being swayed by external pressures, by the opinions of others, by the constant barrage of advertising and social media telling us what we should want and how we should be then.
So it's not just about personal fulfillment. It's about becoming more resilient in the face of those external forces that are constantly trying to hijack our attention and shape our desires. It's about reclaiming that sense of autonomy.
Precisely. And that's why the Stoics saw discipline as such a crucial virtue. It's the foundation for living a life that's truly in alignment with our values and aspirations.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the why of Stoic discipline, but I'm curious to delve deeper into the how. What were some of the specific practices that the Stoics used to cultivate self-control and resilience?
Well, in addition to the mouse hole and the 6x5 methods we discussed earlier, the Stoics had a whole toolbox of practices. One of them was journaling, which they saw as a way to reflect on their thoughts and actions, identify patterns, and course correct as needed.
It's like having that inner dialogue, that ongoing conversation with yourself about how you're showing up in the world and what you can do better.
Exactly. Another key practice was meditation, which helped them cultivate mindfulness and detach from their thoughts and emotions.
And we know from modern science that meditation has all sorts of benefits for stress reduction, focus, and emotional regulation. It's like taking your inner brake system to the gym for a workout.
That's a great way to put it. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of practicing gratitude, focusing on the good things in their lives rather than dwelling on what they lacked.
It's about shifting your perspective from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance, even when things are tough.
Precisely. And another powerful practice was contemplating their own mortality.
Wait, thinking about death, that seems a bit morbid.
It might sound counterintuitive, but the Stoics believed that contemplating death helped them appreciate the preciousness of life and live each day with greater intention.
It's like that saying, live each day as if it were your last. But in this case, it's not about being reckless or hedonistic. It's about living with a sense of urgency and purpose, making the most of the time you have.
Exactly. And all these practices were ultimately aimed at cultivating virtue, which the Stoics saw as the key to living a good and fulfilling life.
So it's not about discipline for discipline's sake. It's about using discipline as a tool to become a better person, to live in accordance with your values, to make a positive contribution to the world.
Precisely. And that's what makes Stoicism so relevant today. It's not just a philosophy for ancient Greeks and Romans. It's a timeless set of principles and practices that can help us navigate the challenges of modern life with greater wisdom, resilience, and purpose.
I'm feeling truly inspired by this deep dive into Stoicism. It's like we've uncovered a treasure trove of practical wisdom that's just as relevant today as it was centuries ago.
I agree. And I think the key takeaway is this. Discipline, when aligned with virtue and purpose, is not a burden, but a source of freedom and fulfillment. It's the key to unlocking our potential and living a life that's truly meaningful and joyful.
So to bring it back to where we started, those breaks are not about holding ourselves back. They're about empowering us to move forward with greater confidence, clarity, and intention.
Beautifully put. And as we've seen, the Stoics offer a wealth of practical wisdom on how to cultivate those breaks and become the masters of our own destiny.
If you're listening and you're feeling inspired to explore Stoicism further, we highly recommend checking out the resources we mentioned earlier. The books, websites, and podcasts that can guide you on this journey of self-discovery and growth.
And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. Start with one principle, practice one principle, and see how it impacts your life.
We'd love to hear about your experiences. Share your insights and stories with us on social media.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Stoic discipline and the power of breaks.
We'll be back next week with another fascinating exploration of ideas that matter. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.